It's Backstage Pass with Steve Ryan. And here's your host, Steve Ryan.
Hey Steve,
Hey,
how you doing?
Michael. Hey, Michael.
How's life?
Good. How are you, my friend, my good buddy?
I'm very good, thank you. Oh, it's my hands behind your head. I can see
Yeah, it
them.
is. Yeah. Man, I'm so glad to talk to you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk to you, sir.
Man, you're like a pop music master.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I certainly enjoy. I enjoy both parts of my job. I enjoy writing and recording and performing, and I also love doing the promotion stuff. So I'm very lucky in that respect.
Can you tell me a little bit about, because I was reading your bio and a little bit about, when you were growing up and you got into music early in your life, and then you kind of went a different direction. And
Yeah.
then you and Lisa kind of connected and she kind of pushed you back. Can we go through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I began to play the guitar when I was about 12 years old. And as soon as I could play two or three chords, I was writing songs. They weren't very good. Thankfully, I've got better over time, but that's what it's all about. And yeah, I think when I was 18, 19, 20, I formed a pretty good band. And we were playing some decent venues in London. Shepherd's Bush Empire is quite a famous venue over here. And we were supporting bands there. But we didn't quite make it. Like the story of most bands, it kind of fell apart. We were all young and highly strung. Egos were in place. And so I kind of retreated back to my home, and my parents thought I was going to university. But what I used to do is I'd get up in the morning, I'd leave the house, I'd make out like I was going to university, wait till they'd left because I was going to university in London, so I wasn't living away from home. And once they'd left the house, I went back home and I used to sit in my bedroom and write and record songs on my four-track machine and be a bit of a hippie, really. And eventually, I think after about 6 months, I got found out. My dad caught me, and my parents were really supportive of my music career. But my dad, like any good parent should do, said, you probably need to get we'll support you all the way, but you need to get a job behind you and start earning some money. And my dad ran a construction company in London. And so I went off to work with him. And I think within a week, they realized I was absolutely useless on a building site. I don't like being cold. I don't like being muddy. I don't like being hurt or in danger. I'm a musician, darling. So, these hands are important. Yeah, so my dad moved me to the office and I learned to be an accountant and ran the jobs and managed the construction company. And it was always meant to be a temporary thing. And John Lennon famously said, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans."
Yeah.
And I love that line because it's so true of most people's lives. And that's exactly what had happened to me. I I got married, had three children, got a large mortgage for my house, and all of a sudden this part-time temporary job became pretty important. And for the next 15 years, I did that job and I carried on writing music and recording it and sending it out or handing it out to people that I met and didn't really get anywhere until I think I was 38, so very late in the day. And it was a whole series of events happened across the course of about a year. And the British economy really began to collapse quite badly and the building industry was affected. So the work was drying up for a start. And we'd had a really successful company. So this was the first time this had happened. My dad wasn't very well and didn't want to carry on anymore. And I certainly didn't want to carry on by myself because I never wanted to be there in the first place.
Right.
And as you alluded to, I met a lady called Lisa Davies who had been in the music business all her life. And I gave her a CD, and it was her husband who actually picked up. She took about 3 months, I think, to listen to it, but her husband heard it and said, "Wow, this guy's great. Who is he?" And she said, "Well, that's Mike from who'd been coming to see us." And from there, she enabled me and helped me to make that first album, which came out 10 years ago, and hence the title 10 of the new album. So it took a
Wow.
while, but I found my calling in the end, I think.
Yeah. Good for you. Hey, is this a kind of a best of? Would you call this a best of?
Yeah, I wouldn't be so bold as to call it as a best of. So it's a compilation. It's a compilation album of I've had four albums over the last 10 years and a bunch of independent singles. So yeah, this is a collection of those of some of my favorites and the fans' favorites and yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then some newer stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting Better is kind of the track that everyone's talking about, and it's getting all the attention right now. The cover of the Beatles song. Why did you choose that one?
That's actually a song I recorded in 2017. I was working on my second album with a producer called Warren Bennett, who's now become a great friend of mine. And as usual, we were taking far too long with the album. We weren't even halfway through it, and I was really anxious to release us to get some music out there because I wanted to build on the success of my first album, and I was worried that the people who had supported that would think I'd fallen off the edge of the earth or something. And we're both huge Beatles fans, and 2017 coincided with the 50th anniversary of the release of Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And there'd been some noise about that on the radio and TV with special programs being made. And we said, hey, why don't we, rather if we need to release something quickly, let's do a cover version because that takes away half the work. And so yeah, we looked down the album listing and saw Getting Better, and it's one of my favorite songs. I don't think it's been covered too much. I can't think of any famous cover versions. So we set about recording our own version of it, and we literally just put it out. We did a video for it and put it out on YouTube. It was never actually released to radio or anything. So yeah, so when I was putting this compilation together, I thought, well, that would be a great one to include because a lot of people hadn't heard it. So
It's getting better all the time. I used to get mad at my school. The teachers who taught me weren't cool. You're holding me down, turning me round, filling me up with your rules. Ooh, I've got to admit, it's getting better, a little better all the time.
that's why it's kind of the main single at the moment.
Yeah. And you know, McCartney has commented on you, and I think quote unquote called you a rock star.
Yeah, yeah, I was. Oh, it shouldn't. Incredibly lucky. It still makes the hairs on my back of my neck stand up. But I met Paul McCartney in 2012 whilst I was recording the first album. And I was, it's going to sound very posh this, but it was at Buckingham Palace. And I was working with a guy called Cliff Richard, very
Yeah,
famous.
yeah,
Yeah, you know Cliff.
yeah,
And well, Lisa was promoting Cliff, and I was working with Lisa, just started to work with Lisa. And it was the Queen's Jubilee concert at Buckingham Palace, and
yeah,
Cliff and was performing. And so we were there with Cliff, and it was just incredible because the backstage was like a huge marquee and with dressing rooms in it that were just kind of curtained off from each other. And the first day I got there, because we were there for the whole weekend, the first day I got there, we went to Cliff's dressing room, and to the right hand side of it, it said Sir Paul McCartney. And like, I'm just like, oh my God. For me, Paul McCartney is the reason I picked up the guitar. I was started to play the piano. I began to write songs. He's been my hero forever. And it wasn't just that. I mean, on the other side was Tom Jones, then it was Elton John, Stevie Wonder.
yeah,
Uh, just everyone who was everyone was at that concert. And McCartney wasn't there at the time, but I noticed on the sheet that he was sound checking an hour later or something. So I went to make sure I got to the sound check, and it was Lisa and me and a couple of people cleaning up the kind of, well, getting the stadium ready, getting the area ready. And McCartney came out of his band and sound checked for about 45 minutes, and I sang along to every tune. So standing right in front of him. And when he finished, he was very kind and he put his guitar down and he came over to me and he said, "Hi, I'm Paul." And I was like, "I know, I think I know
yeah,
that."
yeah,
And he was really kind, and I kind of hang out with him for the next 2 or 3 days. I kind of, first of all, I just followed him around like a lost puppy dog. But he kind of picked up on that and then was very kind to me and took me under his wing. And we had lots of great conversations. And I had an EP that I'd worked on before. Whilst I was recording the album, I'd done an EP. And so I gave him the EP. And he took it away to his dressing room and came, and then I saw him the next day, and that was when he was like, "Hey, you're a rock star, man. Love the stuff, rock star." So that's where the quote
Wow.
comes from. And then he called me rock star for the next 2 days, which is quite a compliment coming from the man himself.
Wow. And think about it. You give somebody like Paul McCartney a CD. Do you really think he's going to listen to it? But he did.
Yeah, he took it to his dressing room and he did, bless him, which is really kind. I mean, he was um, incredibly humble guy, and I think that's what's kept him. I guess it's that Liverpool, that Northern English upbringing, very, very down to earth, and no airs and graces, really, incredibly polite, but still just a guy, just a bloke from Liverpool. You know what I mean? And you could
Yeah.
have a chat with him, even though he might be the richest, the most famous rock star, maybe the most famous person on the planet. But he
Yeah.
was he was just yeah, he was so level-headed and so cool. Man's just
Yeah.
so cool, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's incredible.
In your self-titled LP, you also covered a McCartney song, Maybe I'm Amazed.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
your version.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that one hard to listen to. I have to be honest,
Yeah.
because I'm such a huge Paul McCartney fan. And I think Maybe I'm Amazed is one of the greatest songs he's ever written, one of the greatest songs ever written, full stop. And so I was my arm was twisted to record that. I used to play it, I was playing it live and I was doing it more of a McCartney style. But my producer at the time, Keith Bessie, suggested slowing it down and putting that kind
Yeah.
of orchestration on it.
Maybe I'm amazed at the way you love me all the time. Maybe I'm afraid of the way I love you. Maybe I'm amazed at the way you pulled me out of time. You hung me on a line. Maybe I'm amazed at the way I really need you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know a lot of people love it, but yeah, I'm still a fan of the McCartney one. But very kind of you to say, thank you.
Well, I was listening to that album, and there's a number of it kind of has some deep cuts on it. The Radio Years is one of my favorite songs on that album. I love that song.
No, thank you very much. That was the first single from the album. It
Yeah.
was a difficult song to write because I originally wrote it as a Christmas song, believe it or not. But it was quite a deep and dark Christmas song. And my producer, when I gave it to him, said this has the potential to be a fantastic song, but a Christmas song it isn't. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so go away and rewrite the lyrics, and that's really hard to do when you've written a song and you have to, you've got the basis of the song, you know the lyric, and you've got to completely rewrite it. So it took a while, but it ended up being like a love song to the radio, is what it's about, a love song to music. And
Give me music from the rafters. Give me songs and souvenirs. Give me dancing in the aisles. Keep me smiling through these tears. Tell me we can be together, but it's not as it appears. Give me wall-to-wall vision, but the radio years made the man I wanna be.
yeah, it was my first single, and I was very lucky because it got picked up. There's the biggest radio station in the UK and in Europe, actually, is BBC Radio 2. And very famous disc jockey called Terry Wogan picked up on it when I first sent it out, and he played it on his Sunday morning show, and it has tens of millions of listeners. And he played it for the next few weeks, and then invited me in for a session. So it was quite a start to my recording
Yeah.
career. Very lucky.
Wow. Yeah. Back to Work in Johannesburg. Those are great songs on. It's got some deep tracks on it, brother. I love it.
Thank you, thank you. I think yeah. I mean, it's quite an impressive first album. Got some great players on it as well. I mean, I was really lucky to have Elliot Randall, who famously played with Steely Dan and
Mhm.
John Lennon, amongst others. He played on three tracks on that album, and Albert Lee, a very famous country music guitar player, played on one of the tracks as well. So yeah, I got some incredible players, and that
Yeah.
was through Lisa and the producer Keith Bessie. So yeah, I'm very proud of it. Very good.
Michael, explain to me One Plus One featuring Michael Armstrong. What's One Plus One?
Okay, so I mentioned a guy called Warren Bennett who
Hmm?
produced my second album, and we ended up writing a couple of songs on that album together, and we just became best buddies. Sometimes you find people who he's about 10 years older than me, but we have exactly the same tastes in music. And we can mention an obscure concert from 25 years ago that one of us had gone to, and damn, he was there as well. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
you had that
Yeah.
real connection. We just, and silly, same silly sense of humor as well. And it was during lockdown in 2020, it started here in the UK, COVID. And Warren got in touch with me and said, "Look, I've got a handful of songs that I've kind of half written over the years, but I can't really finish them." And Warren doesn't write lyrics either, so they were just musical ideas. He said, "Seeing as we're all locked up, do you fancy working on them if I send them over to you?" And I said, "Sure." So he sent me over five or six songs, and I played around with them and made them complete songs, sent them back, and he was absolutely thrilled. And the idea was the kind of remit that he gave me was these aren't for me or for us. These are for other people to sing. He was thinking maybe a female singer,
Hmm.
maybe R&B kind of singer, some for like boy bands, and that kind of thing. So he was so happy with what I sent back. He said, "Do you mind if I send you a few more?" And I said, "Of course." And the very next day, about 60 songs came through. And I was like, okay, that's not just a few more.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't doing anything. It was, but actually I was working on my third album, but in between times, I worked on these songs. And so by the time we finished lockdown, we had a canon of 70 odd, what I think were really strong songs. And the idea was to get them to a publisher and to send them out to people. And, publishers aren't quite what they were once upon a time, shall we say, without being rude.
Hmm.
And so the songs are kind of just sitting around mainly. And so we came up with the idea of doing one plus one, which is Warren and I. We're one plus one. We're the writers, we're the producers, and we'll do a project where one plus one features a singer. So we thought the obvious thing to do is the first one is to feature Michael Armstrong and record one of those songs. And hopefully, if that was successful, we'd then be able to entice other people, maybe Cliff Richard, who I've mentioned, or Kylie Minogue, or Sophie Ellis Bextor. We had one song in mind for. And so that's where the one plus one songs come from. And we've recorded two of them so far. They've both been featuring Michael Armstrong.
Yeah.
But they're pretty cool. So we've got a whole load more to record, but I'd rather other people sing them. So if anyone's watching and they fancy singing, let me know.
Well, How Much More of My Heart is one of those songs which I've
Yeah.
had on loop.
It was fun, now it's gone, now it's done. I was wrong. How much more of my heart are you gonna
And then the greatest thing is
Yeah.
it was described in something that I read called the perfect pop song, and I was thinking about that. It really is a great pop song.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was something that was written again. It was originally for a female singer, but I have to be honest. When we wrote that, I had always thought, okay, this is a really really strong out and out pop song,
Hmm.
and I knew that in the key we'd written in, I'd be able to sing it well, and so I was always kind of pushing for us to record that one, and I eventually got Warren to agree, and it did really well for us. So it was the right decision.
believe it's true? I knew that I found love in the moment I found you. Don't you keep me waiting, hanging on a string. I already told you, you're the greatest thing.
Yeah. Do you how do you find that balance between writing songs that you want other people to record and songs that you kind of want to keep for yourself? Is it a feeling inside or what?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's a difficult question. 'Cause, I mean, I hadn't really ever written songs for anyone else until lockdown, until Warren came up with this idea. And I say they were just they were streaming out of the pair of us, and a lot of them are written from a female perspective, so I really couldn't sing them. I mean, it's not just one or two lyrics that need changing; it's a whole thing about losing my man and all that kind of thing. Do you know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
I wouldn't get away with that. But yeah, you get a feeling there's a couple more that we wrote during that period, which I said to him straight away, okay, I want these two for my own album, not even as a 1+1 project. These are
Right.
Michael Armstrong songs. So yeah, I think it's a feeling, and I think if I'm writing by myself, I wouldn't think of a song being for anyone else. I think if I'm writing, if I'm sitting there by myself writing the song, then it's always going to be a song for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great if other people cover it, but as a solo writer, it would always be from a selfish perspective.
Yeah. We were talking about McCartney earlier, and I was listening to Looking for the World, that album.
Hmm.
And there's a song on there called Doing the Time that when I was listening to that, it kind of felt McCartney-ish. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps even more Jeff Lynne or ELO.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I have to make you love me. Looking for clues, leaving a sign. I'm doing the time. Sentenced to silence inside.
I think because that was an interesting album because as I said, that second album was was produced by Warren Bennett, and we ended up writing some of the songs together. And as I said, Warren and I had this um, unbelievable link of albums and music that we both loved, like rare, strange things we could mention, and we both had that album. And so it was originally called Under the Influence, and Warren had the idea that each song would be influenced by one of our favorite artists. So I can almost go through that album and say, okay, that one's that person, that one's that person.
Yeah.
And during the time was very much ELO, I think.
Yeah.
But then ELO were always clearly the Beatles part two. So there's
For
going to
sure.
be a link between McCartney and ELO anyway. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can go through that album, and I could list a whole load of influences there, I think.
Yeah. Periscope is on there too. And I think that's a great song too.
Yeah, Supertramp.
I try to proceed with precaution and code. With every neck, you provide enough rope. I'm trying to get my head above water so I prepare to snow. I've got to worry, worry. You've got to worry.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah. Yeah. You're right.
That's the Supertramp influence. I'm a huge Supertramp fan. The first band I
Yeah.
ever saw, and yeah,
Wow.
that's got that. That all came from the ding ding, ding, trying to do a
Yeah.
Supertramp line on that electric piano.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can hear all those influences.
There's a 2022 album, Oh Hi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a town in Southern California.
Right. 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 Okay. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
have you been there?
yeah. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
In 2018, when I was recording the album, we've just been talking about the second album. I was
Huh?
invited to go on a songwriting retreat with Ben Folds. You know
Yeah.
Ben
Yeah.
Folds, the
Yeah.
singer-songwriter. But
Yeah.
Ben Folds, again, one of my biggest influences. I adore Ben Folds, and think he's one of your finest American writers. He's done everything from Disney films to pop albums to a number one classical album.
Yeah,
The
for
guy's,
sure.
you know, the guy's incredible. And I was invited to go to Ojai in California on a songwriting retreat, and I jumped at the chance. And Lisa came with me, and we went to LA, stayed there for a few days, and then drove up the Pacific Coast Highway, listening to
Yeah.
Eagles songs and and all the West Coast tunes up to Ojai, which is about an hour and a half's drive up in the hills. Most beautiful place. And yeah, I spent 3, 4 days there with Ben Folds and about maybe 10 other writers. Most Virtually everyone else, no one else was from England, everyone else was from Canada or North America. And I ended up writing 5 or 6 really good songs, which made up the bulk of the Oh Hi album. So I had to call it Oh Hi because it's so
Yeah.
steeped in that West Coast music.
Well, Each Other's Eyes came out for that, and that was a hit.
When we lock eyes, we see where our future lies, and all the fear and doubt in both of us dies. We hold no secrets, we wear no disguise, you and I in each other's eyes. We hold no secrets, we wear no disguise.
Each Other's Eyes was written at the retreat with Ben Folds. That was an exercise that he did. Ben had written a song with an English author, an album with an English author called Nick Hornby, a really fantastic novel writer, and they got together in England somehow. And Nick basically wrote about 10 sets of lyrics, and Ben had to put music to them, and that became the Lonely Avenue album, which is a fantastic album. So Ben said, and that was the first time he'd ever written songs with someone else's lyrics. So he said, now I'm going to try that exercise with you. So we all had to write a poem. He said, just make it a simple love song, a simple love poem, to whatever, to your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mistress, whatever it is, whoever, your dog, whatever. And so we all did that. And then we put them in a hat and we pulled them out. And I got a guy called, name's not going to remember now, it's going to come back to me in a minute, but I got someone else's lyrics. He's a guy from New York, Ben Stringfield, and I wrote Each Other's Eyes. I had to go away to my piano and I had his lyrics and I wrote Each Other's Eyes to it. And it's so West Coast that it completely describes that whole week that we had. And I recorded it in that way, so it opens the album. And yeah, like you said, it did well. I ended up unbelievably going to #1 on the American indie music chart, and number 14 in the top 40 on the NW, whatever, NMW charts, which was incredible. Yeah, most amazing thing. Kirkwall was very much not American, strangely enough. Kirkwall is a place at the top of Scotland, right at the top. If you look at, I was watching the weather one day on the English on one morning, and the weather girl was pointing out the different places. She put into the very top of the English map, or the UK map, and right up there is the place called the Orkney Islands, even further up in Scotland. And the very highest Orkney Island, most northern Orkney Island, is a place called Kirkwall, and I'd never heard of it. And everywhere else down in London was beautiful sunshine, but Kirkwall was like snowing and -20 kind of thing, like it normally is up there. And that I must have been feeling a bit miserable or a bit depressed or something, because that kind of struck a chord in me that the thing at the very top was the thing that was the most unhappy in a way. And I've
Mhm.
just finished my first album, and even though I was getting all this success, I felt perhaps at the lowest point I ever had done, despite finally achieving my dreams, which is a really strange thing to come across. And it's depression, I guess. But so I literally looked up Kirkwall on my phone and I made a list of facts about Kirkwall, and I wrote the song, and street names appear in it, historical facts appear in it, and I managed to make a story out of that about essentially about achieving your dreams and finding it wasn't what you were after all along.
Alcohol, prescription Prozac, I don't mind, yeah, I'm alright, Jack. This is where I longed to be. And after all, was Kirkwall meant for me? After all, it wasn't meant to be.
And I think it's one of my best songs.
It's a great song, and you're right. A lot of people, when they achieve that goal they've always been striving for, you still sometimes feel a little empty, huh?
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I've read about it. I've read all the biographies. I'm a music scholar, and I've heard all about it. And it was never going to happen to me. I always knew what I wanted. That was going to make all the difference, and it didn't.
Yeah.
I fell into the same trap as everybody else.
Yeah.
But,
Go
but
figure.
I'm glad. But I'd rather have been there than not.
Yeah. Well, you learn from that. I mean, it's a life lesson,
Yeah,
and
it is very much so. You're right. Yeah, and yeah, perhaps mistakes, they often say, are the best lessons. Failure, although it wasn't a failure, but it was
right.
in a personal sense, perhaps. But perhaps they're the things you learn from the most.
Well, I was talking to Martha Davis from the Motels a while back, and she was talking about success and especially that album. I think it was their third or fourth album that had Only the Lonely and all those, and they were having these big hits. And she said the same thing. It was one of the worst times of her life.
Yeah.
And it just, it was, she thinks back to those days and she's like, those were not happy. And she's like, and be careful. She said, any of these young people watching this, be careful chasing fame because it's not all glamorous like you see on TV. Quite often it's the opposite.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. And also, if you listen to that second album, which you clearly have done on the Looking for the World album, although it's quite a bright, bouncy album, if you delve a little deeper and listen to the lyrics, it's not necessarily a happy album. Periscope, for example, is not a happy song,
Yeah.
um, even though it's got that Supertramp bounce to it. And
Yeah.
that all came, that most of that second album came from that period.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Hey, you did the Gender Neutral Volume One. I think it's an EP. And
Yeah,
you picked some tunes. The one that stood out to me was your rendition of "Don't Get Me Wrong" by Chrissy Hynde and by the Pretenders, and
yeah.
man, I love your interpretation of that. And but why did you choose to do those songs?
It's interesting. When I did my first album, there's two covers on that first album. The McCartney one you've already mentioned, Maybe I'm Amazed, and as a cover of Billy Joel's Allentown.
Yeah,
And I really didn't want to put them on that first album. I'd waited, as I said, when I started recording that, I was 38. So I waited a long time to finally record a professional album. And as a singer-songwriter, I didn't want anyone else's songs on it. So I fought against that, but I lost. Lisa and my producer convinced me, and they were right. Looking back, they were 100% right. But I've never been interested in doing covers since then. And then when I had the hit with Each Other's Eyes, I thought it was again time to capitalize on that, and I didn't really have many songs written for one reason or another, or songs that I was prepared to record. And so I thought, I know I'll do an album or do an EP of cover versions. And now anyone who's ever been a musician or played in a band and sang in pubs and bars know that you play. I've played Brown Eyed Girl and Walk of Life and all those songs, Proud Mary, so many times I could sing them in my sleep. And I have to turn them off when they come on the radio, even though they're some of the greatest songs of all time. I just can't listen to them
yeah,
because I'm so sick of them, so sick of playing them, and I still do it now. So there's no way I was going to record any of them. So I thought, well, I know, I'll record some female songs. I've never sung female songs when I'm doing covers, when I'm performing. So I made a list of female tracks. Madonna's on there, True Blue, Skeeter Davis, End of the World, Kate Bush, Wuthering Heights. I thought, no, no,
yeah,
no man is surely going to be crazy enough to do that. And yeah, of course, like you say, the Pretenders one. No, but that was, funnily enough, I'd actually started playing it that way about 10 years before. In 2011, 2012, I worked on a cruise ship, singing on a cruise ship, only for a month or so. And I was digging around for songs to play, and I used to ask people. People used to give me requests, and I'd say, okay, well, I'll work it out and play it for you tomorrow because I had nothing to do during the day, so I might as well sit there working out songs. And I think someone requested that song, "Don't Get Me Wrong," but
Mm,
I'm playing solo guitar or solo piano, and I just couldn't get the bounce right. It just didn't sound right. So I thought, well, let's try and play it a different way and slow it down.
Don't get me wrong if I'm acting so distracted. I'm thinking about the fireworks that go off when you smile. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
And that version emerged, and I kind of played it every night on that cruise ship, and it was. I think it's beautiful. It's one of those again, a bit like when I did with Billy Joel's Allentown. When you slow these songs down, the lyrics, which are in both those songs, are absolutely fantastic lyrics, and you can't necessarily hear them or appreciate them when they're sung with the band and at the pace that they're sung at. When you slow it down, that's a really deep love song. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it wrenches your heart out. So
yeah,
yeah, that's probably my favorite one from that collection.
yeah. Hey, where do you want people to follow you? What's best? What are your favorite socials? Where can people keep up on what's happening with you, music wise, and anything that you may be doing? Where do you want me to send people?
Well, my website is michaelarmstrongmusic.co.uk, and all my socials are some sort of derivative of that. So Facebook is Michael Armstrong Music, and Instagram and all that kind of thing. I don't really do much on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. So it's normally Facebook and my website. And I'm not down with the kids that much, I'm afraid. So I stick to one platform. I update my website when it needs updating, and I post most stuff on Facebook. Thank you.
Man, I've kept you a little bit later than I promised, but brother, thanks for your time. I'm so glad we
Cheers,
did
man.
this. I'm
Yeah.
I'm so happy for your album. I spent a lot of time listening to it. I love it. So it's been great. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, let's talk again soon.
Yeah, look after yourself. Bye
All
now.
right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
For questions or comments, email Steve at steveryan.songoftheday@gmail.com.